some of my humanity.
You were in a bank robbery?
I was in a bank robbery.
The Bible calls us to love.
Said that to me again. Joe Lawyer, the third.
Yes, sir.
JL3, right?
Yes, sir.
Man, I'm stoked to sit down and have this conversation with you. Obviously, we've known each other, I think, how long have we known each other? 14? Has it been?
About 14-ish, 15-ish years?
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't even think about that until now.
Goodness gracious.
That's a long time. It really is.
Yeah.
Man, so the first time I had a chance to meet you, Whitworth Gospel Choir, your older sister, Miracle, was there, and she was excited that her little brother was coming. And, a mutual friend of ours, Marcus, was, he was hyping you up too. But man, when you got there, you like completely changed the dynamics of the gospel choir in such an amazing way. And you you help people explore their ability to worship together, to sing, to practice. What does it mean to actually produce something good, of good quality? And here I am, like, looking at this young, 18-year-old freshman, I think, 18, 19 or so. When you weren't, working on music, you were hooping people up with the headband on. I remember that.
Yep.
And I was just like,
the headband, yep.
He's a hooper too? I was like, yeah, he's from Tacoma. Okay, yeah, he's
Yep.
good, he's good. But man, you really were able to help bring this sense of unity and honor and intentionality around worship that I can't forget we had a concert where you had your dad come up.
Yep.
And we were working on some songs in the chapel. And I mean, we were drilling it. We were going over it over and over and over and over. And I was just looking at the space of intentionality in what you were doing. And you were young then, 18. And here I was at that time, maybe 22 years old or so. And I was just looking oh, he's serious. I've been a part of worship, but I was like, he takes worship serious on the presentation side of things more than what others are doing, or at least that I had seen in my peer group. And I just thought that was phenomenal. So when I had, just been following you, before you had a kid, now you got 4 beautiful babies. They all look like you, right? They all look
Praise
like
Jesus.
you. So if you would just talk to us a little bit about your background, here in the local church community, all the way to Whitworth, all the way to where you're at right now.
Okay, so that's a lot. I appreciate it. So grew up, born and raised in Tacoma, Washington. I grew up going to True Vine Community Church of God in Christ, where the late Bishop Leo C. Brown was my pastor. I grew up in a musical household. So my dad played the bass and the lead guitar. He had a men's quartet group called the Brotherhood Singers. So that's where a lot of my musical training came from. My oldest brother, he was a drummer and bass guitarist. At the time, he was one of the best drummers around. And so I to this day, I took pride in anytime I go up to Seattle in churches, and I just say I'm Ryan's little brother. I'm cool with people now. I'm family because, everybody knows my brother Ryan. Both of my sisters, my older sisters, they sing as well. And my mom, when she was here with us, she sang and she played the piano. So I'm the youngest of 4. My mom passed when I was 2 years old. And so naturally, I got the least amount of time with our mom out of me and my siblings. But one of the things that I hold dear to is that, one, God has gave me amazing memories of my mom. But then I'm also the only one of my siblings who play the piano. And that's what my mom played a little piano. So for me, that's something special because it's a way of me being able to connect with my mom still. Musical family. My dad had a group called the Brotherhood Singers, and every week on Wednesday nights, we'd be in rehearsals for hours at a time. And as a little kid, my dad would allow me to hop on the drums during their rehearsals. And my dad and even my brother, when he was around, they were very big on discipline with me. I was coming up in an era where a lot of young musicians were all about chopping and adding fills and all of that. And my brother wasn't having that. I would say that my brother, he punked the discipline into me. He gave me a lot of tough love in regards to, he punked the discipline.
I've never heard that word.
But like, and then my dad, my dad's pretty strong on discipline. So I'm getting it both from my big brother and my dad. And anytime my brother lights into me, my dad's just sitting there. But what it did was it taught me the importance of learning how to play with other musicians. Because as I was growing up, I would notice a lot of times musicians would be playing, and while the drummer might be nice, he's chopping and all that, so is the keyboard. They're chopping too, So as a result, like it's just a lot going on, not a lot of cohesiveness taking place. So I really learned that from my dad. My dad is the starting point of everything music, pretty much. As I started to get older, he started taking me out to banquets with them. When I was about 6 and 7 years old, I would be a backup drummer. I think I played my first banquet at 6 or 7 years old because my brother was out of town. And then my dad started working me in as a background vocalist. Prior to this, my dad also led a youth group / choir called Something Special. It was something he did for my older sister and her peers, and my sister Miracle and I were the babies. He allowed us to sing along with them. So we got some singing training with them. But as I got older, my dad, he put me in as a background vocalist with his singing group. So if he needed somebody to step in, it was Mother's Day when I was 8 years old. We were missing a singer, so my dad had me come in and sing. We sang "I Just Want to Be Right" by Keith Wonderboy Johnson. And as I got older, I pretty much got to a point to where I wanted to always have something to do. So my brother was in the military. When he came back home, he was playing the drums. My brother's playing the drums. My dad's on the bass. I want something to do. So I start fiddling around with the keyboard, and I teach myself how to play Nobody by the Williams Brothers. Just one day randomly in rehearsal, I start playing it, and all the men look up like, "Oh, Joe's playing that?" And they just hop on the mics and they start singing Nobody. So that next Sunday, I think I was 11 when this happened. That next Sunday, they sang Nobody so I could play the keyboard with them. And then as my brother started transitioning out, he started transitioning to move to Vegas. My heart for the bass started to grow, so I wanted to get serious about the bass. So my brother would take one Sunday a month where he would sit to the side and he would have me play the bass. In preparation for once he moved away, I would be playing frequently. So both he and my dad, they were a real big part in that. That was about 12 years old. Also at 12, I gathered an interest in writing music. And I think this is where it really started for me. I asked my dad for a music production kit. So 12 years old for Christmas, my dad gives me a 4-track cassette mixer. And it's funny because a lot of my
the actual cassette tape.
So it's funny because like a lot of my students don't know what a cassette mixer is.
They don't even know what cassette tape is.
Exactly. So I started writing instrumentals on there, and I think that's where my heart for worship really started to break out, because that's when music became my escape. 12 years old, that's a transitional period of life, where you're transitioning and you're trying to find yourself and all of that. So like in the midst of peer pressures and struggling with being who I know I'm supposed to be called to be versus trying to be like my friends and everybody else, like this was my safe space. So my brother was the one who told me, he was like, "Hey man, you need to get into writing because that's really where it's at. All these musicians and singers and all that." He said, "You need to get into writing." So he was the first person to really push me to write. And at the time I only could write instrumentals. So I would write, because I couldn't write lyrics to save my life. And I would just write instrumentals, and like, that would be my form of worship. And I want to say freshman year of high school, at this point, I'm now the primary bass guitarist because my brother has moved and my dad's playing lead. I prayed to God. I said, "God, if you would gift me to write lyrics, I will dedicate this gift to you." And I remember one of the first full songs that I wrote I was 16 years old. I wrote, it's called "Clean Heart." It was based off of the prayer of David, give me a clean heart and renew a right spirit within me, cast me not away from your presence. That's what the song was based on. And the vamp of the song went on to say, "All I am is yours, take all of me." And I would say like that's really where God really shifted things to where like I would find myself in spaces where he would speak and I would just start writing. I got songs that I wrote in high school that I don't even know where they're at anymore. Like because God just began to flood my spirit with it. So like I in high school, I gathered a heart for like, I want this music to be my form of worship to you. I don't want to just do it just to do it. I don't want to do it to make people feel good. I really want to be used to reach the hearts of the souls whoever God has to hear my music. I want it to reach their souls, because there's a lot of feel good music. That's cool. I don't want to be in that number. I want God to use me to transform lives. I think that's really where that really all started for me, just in terms of the heart that I began to gain. So like, I gained a heart to where, like, for me, I had to consume worship, because I found myself, even as a high schooler, God would put me in situations where somebody might approach me or ask me a question about this or that, and I needed my heart to be in the right place. So like pregame, before basketball, my coach would have me lead team devotions before our games, before our home games. And so like pregame, while everybody else is listening to their music and whatnot, I'm listening to Williams Brothers or Evelyn Turntine or, Fred Hammond. I'm consuming Jesus, because that's how I learned that's how I centered myself, in the midst of anxieties as a kid. Worship was my escape. Worship was my safe space. And as I've gotten older, I've come to understand that worship is our submission and our offering to God, but that's also how we should fight our battles too. So like that's really a lot of what I do now in this season of life. Is I'm teaching and training youth to learn how to fight their battles the right way. If we say we love Jesus, then we got to be mindful of how we're fighting. So.
And you're still writing now.
Yes,
right?
sir. Yes, sir.
So like, what's your and I know we're gonna hit on that timeline question, but I'm just gonna jump in just real quick with this one. What is your approach to writing, and then like how has that changed from like when you first started writing versus how you write now?
The approach, I think it differs. Like, so now at this stage of my life, how people have their strengths and their superpowers and all of that. I personally feel that writing is my superpower. I know so many musicians who can outplay me on the drums, bass, guitar, keys, all of that fun stuff, outsing me and all that. No, it's not a competition. But the one place that I feel the most security is writing, because for me, writing it's a way of either communicating with God or communicating God's word to others. And God's just given me a way of just being able to, he speaks, So like, I would say my approach, it differs. It depends on the situation. So like, I could be at work and just doing something random, and I start hearing a song, and I've gotten to a point now, you can easily forget things now. So unfortunately, as we get older in life, so I have to record into my voice memos on my phone, just take it down real quick. A lot of times God speaks to me when I'm listening in on the sermon from my pastor. So oftentimes I'll bring my iPad to church with me. I'll be taking notes on the sermon, but the moment I hear something, I switch the page and I start writing, just so I could, at least start that thought. Or sometimes God has given me full-blown songs. There's a song I wrote called Goodbye Fear. God gave me the entire song while my pastor was preaching back in 2018. You
wrote a whole song in a sermon.
An entire song during his sermon. So like I think it just differs, or it depends, on the situation. Just, it's more so a matter of me just being in a space of being attentive to the voice of God. Yeah. I hope that answered.
No, absolutely. Yeah, that's like I've talked to a few folks who would say like, oh man, I want to get into writing. Like, oh, I can't write, or I get writer's blocks. Or I don't know what to say, or everything that I write just sounds like something that someone else said. Or, this and that. And I get there is a place of creativity that you want to bring to writing at the same time. I also think that there are other things because you can write and then you can write songs that move hearts. And I think those are two different things. You can write something that like, oh, this flows well. And that's great. But like certain songs hit and touch the heart. I think because they come from the heart. A lot of David's writings, creating me a clean heart, oh Lord, and renew a right spirit within. Like that comes from that's just not like it sounds good or it's easy to remember. But like you think about what he was going through in life and what his prayer and request was,
Yeah.
and then now we are able to take that inspiration and to create actual songs from
Yes.
that.
Yes.
It's coming from somewhere,
Yes.
right? And I think that's just really really cool.
Yes.
All right, so we got high school. You're a baller. Did you dunk in high school? Could you dunk?
I could dunk. I couldn't palm the ball.
Oh,
I got really sweaty hands. So like, yeah, I got huge hands, but like I sweat a lot. You know, my hands would sweat a lot. So I had one game senior year. One of my assistant coaches, he was like, "Hey Joe," he said, "if you get a breakaway," he said, "I don't even care if you miss it, just go for it." And so we were out past Gig Harbor, somewhere like Chimacum area, and I got a fast break at the start of the game, and this guy is right on my hip, and I just go up, and everyone's like, "What?" And I go to throw it down, and it rims out. It was. Yeah, it was funny. My assistant coach, he was just sitting on the bench laughing like, yeah. And like, I think the reason why he wanted me to do that was he wanted me to start aggressive. So he wanted me to find a way of just being aggressive to start the game. But yeah, I dunked a few times in college. I didn't get any successful dunks in high school. I tried one game. I tried in practice a few times, but I tried in one game and it missed. I went to Whitworth. I stepped into Whitworth saying that this is my wilderness experience. Like I said that, like just how God had Moses in the wilderness before he sent him to get the children of Israel, he had to go into the wilderness. And so I called it that. And it was definitely that. Like it was a lot of learning. It humbled me, helped me to understand that there's people on the other side of the state that do exist, and it's a completely different way. So like it taught me. It really helped me to mature, you know, because I learned about other people and their walks and whatnot. I think it humbled me the most, or it was the most different because I'm out on my own now. I'm no longer at home. My family's a phone call away. You know, I can't drive up to their house, so I'm out on my own. So I'm really learning to experience Jesus for myself, even more so than before, and I'm learning to learn other people more so for myself without the help of friends or family, you know, because like I was always deep in the community being at home in high school. Carlos Fox, keyboardist at Holy Temple, took me under his wing. Forever grateful to him. That's my big brother. He saw the gift in me. He saw the light in me, and he has his 2 keyboards set up at the church. He was like, "Oh yeah," he's like, "You can play one of my keyboards." Takes it down every Sunday, and we're just vibing off of each other. If I do something that he likes, he starts following me. If he does something that I like, I start following. I'm literally just. And here's the secret. When I went to college, I didn't tell anybody that I was a bass guitarist. I told everybody that I was learning the keys, and I intentionally did that because. In my senior year of high school is when I started teaching myself the piano. I wanted to get a little serious about it. And so I was decent on the bass, so I wanted to expand. And so if I told everybody that I played the bass, then people would be asking me to play the bass. And I wanted the opportunity to grow in piano. So like nobody knew for the first year-ish at Holy Temple or Spokane or at Holy Temple that I played the bass. And so Carlos really took me under his wing and really helped me a lot. And in the process, I learned a lot of wisdom from him, from James, Mike Bethley, my brother-in-law now. He was my first friend that I made off campus in Spokane. And these guys, they really took me under their wing. They really helped me to understand Spokane a little bit better. They gave me a little escape to be able to get off campus. But yeah, so like I would say like it really humbled me a lot, to where my approach began to change over the course of time. I think I became more soul driven than task driven, if that makes sense. So like, I'll say with the Exceptional Praise Gospel Choir at Whitworth, I'm working with you on as the keys. I'm working with Nana as bass guitarist, Marcus as drums. But like in the process of that, like one of the things that God had to get me to understand over the course of that first year was that it's more than just working with musicians. Like, I have to be mindful of how I communicate with people, because at the end of the day, you guys are souls. And like, yes, I'm younger than all of you guys and whatnot, but God put me in a place to where I'm leading you guys. And I can't lead from a space of this task is the most important thing. I have to lead from a space of these are souls that God has placed in my care for me to lead, So like, I would say that this is the time where, and even I was involved with events off campus at Holy Temple. And once again, the same thing, like, it's not so much about the task or the people, it's about the souls that God has placed inside of, in front of me. So I think that's when I became more mindful of that. These are souls that I have to be mindful of. And my words are important. The way I say it, the way I carry myself, it's important, because what I say and do can impact, it can impact the difference between them accepting Jesus or not. And even just with whatever situation somebody might be going through, like the way that I communicate to you guys and interact or respond with you guys, that can have a part in the decision that you make concerning your heart and your life right now, yeah.
Man, that's good.
Sorry, these are long answers. I'm sorry, man.
It's okay. We're chatting here. We're chatting. I think you're right. We were all older than you. Marcus and me, same age. Nana, like 1 year, I think, behind. So we were like 3 years older than you. It wasn't your skill and ability, I think, why we followed you. It was always your heart. And like you just said, like your approach, realizing like, hey, okay, this is not just music. Right. You and I, we were just chatting earlier about like how sports is not just sports.
Right.
It's building character and discipleship and things like that. All right. So you're at Whitworth, you're there. You leave Whitworth, you head back to the West Side. And you step into some work over at Life Christian School.
Yes.
Right. So talk to us about that. Like, you become the band director, and not only do you become the band director, Life Christian, and I remember seeing this on Facebook, like the drum line is doing some stuff. I was like, what? Life Christian has never had a drum line like that. They doing some. I'm up here watching Facebook, move my shoulders like, okay, Joe got it going. So talk to us about how you got there, like the opportunity and some of the work you were doing there.
Yeah. So
I have to backtrack a little bit. Senior year, I proposed to my wife. I proposed to Chelsea, who I met in Spokane, and summer after senior year, we're getting married.
Wait, tell me, did you do the ring before spring? You did that.
I did. I did.
Okay, so just real quick. So there's 3 things you have to do at Whitworth. One, you have to drop your plate in Saga, and everyone claps. I don't know why. If you accidentally drop your plate,
it's so weird.
Stand up like a standing ovation.
Yes.
Cheering.
You have to catch a falling pine cone from the tree. There's a lot of pine trees around. So like if you hear one, you literally just see people on campus running and diving to catch a falling pine cone. And then the third thing is ring before spring. Like pretty much like you get engaged, you get married at like while you're like a senior at Whitworth. So before you graduate, you want to do all 3 of those things. And you, my friend,
I did 2 of them.
You dropped the plate?
I dropped a plate. It was so embarrassing.
And everyone started laughing.
Yep.
That's so good.
Yep. But yeah, so I never thought about it that way. I did the ring before spring. Yeah. So we met. Chelsea moved to Spokane to live with her parents my junior year, and we became friends. And I want to say summer after junior year, we started dating. By the start of senior year, I knew that I was going to marry her. And I want to say it was March of my senior year that I proposed. And so in the process of this, like, everybody's like, hey, where are you working? You got to get a job here. Or you got a business management degree. You should apply for a supervisor position here, or apply here, there. And I remember Chelsea, this is like months before our wedding. Chelsea's like, did I ask you to do that? I'm like, no. She's like, who are you marrying? She's like, I will go and get a normal job before I make you work outside of where God's called you. And she was saying that because she knew that God called me to music, and we had no idea how in the world it was going to work or happen. And so I remember one day I was getting ready. I was in the shower, and God spoke to me while I was in the shower. I had already turn in an application at Safeway and some other places for management positions. And God said, did I tell you to turn in an application there? I was like, no. He's like, why'd you do it? And like the only response, I couldn't say anything. That was God. I was stuck, but like I was doing things because family and friends, everybody was telling me I should do this, I should do that. And God told me just sit there and wait. And like one morning I got a phone call. It was the guy who replaced my band teacher. Called me early in the morning. Hey, so something just happened. My wife just got a job offer in Georgia. And so Ross asked me if there's anybody I can think of to replace me. And you're the first one to come to mind. I'm like, what? So like, it was nothing short of a God thing. So I started teaching at Life Christian, started out as the as the band teacher. And I was the youngest founding member of the drum line at Life Christian. And so coming back, the drum line wasn't in the same state that it was when I was there as a student. It needed a little work. So like that was the very, very first thing that I did. Cause my first year, the first half of my year, I was there working alongside the guy that I was going to replace. I was working alongside him. Cause his wife moved, but he was going to move Christmas break. So we're working side by side and I'm running the drum program at this point. So I gutted everything, took people off of certain drums and moved them here and there. And, you know, it was a little hard, but they didn't like the changes at first, but they started to buy into it. And I think one thing that helped was the fact that they all were aware that I was a founding member. And so over the course of time, they just started having a little more faith. They started sounding better. The band started to grow. When I started with the band, I had no high school program. It was only a middle school band. I had 2 8th graders. The rest were 6th and 7th graders. And so, when I started full time, God told me, he said, be yourself. And me, I called myself the unorthodox teacher. I kind of go against some of the rules that are made. And so what I did, I told the kids, I was like, hey, I love Mr. So-and-so. Like, he's an amazing guy. He's a friend of mine. I can't be him. Yeah. I said, I'm going to do the best that I can. I just need you to trust me. Yeah. These little 6th and 7th graders, they trusted me. And the next year around, our team makes it to the state tournament. And the pep band that I take to our district playoffs and to the state tournament is a group of 7th and 8th graders. And at this point, these kids start blazing. Like I'm now, one of the things that God had me to do is he had me to change the sound and the look of the program. One of the things that I always noticed was that we're a Christian school, but the only real thing that we have to show for ourselves is the name that we wear on our chest. And like we have chapel services, and chapel services were good and whatnot, but like beyond that, like when we're going out and about, there's not much that's showing for who we are outside of the name that we're wearing across our chest. Everybody knows who we are because of our name, but they should also know us by the way we conduct ourselves and our sound. And like your voice is important because your voice gives an impression. So God had me to change the way the band sounded. So there's a song by Tasha Cobbs called That's How Great You Are. You lift me high, you stretch me wide. I wrote that for my band to play. I wrote a praise break. I wrote a praise break for my band. I wrote a praise break. We did a praise break, Victory by Ty Tribbett. And so like for us, what I did was I paired my drum line with the pep band. So like I didn't want to have God challenges me to be different, like hence what you're hearing with the band, but also with a lot of pep bands, you see a drum set. Yeah. I didn't want a drum set. God told me to have the drum line perform alongside, and the way I orchestrated the drums, it was like a hybrid of marching percussions and a drum kit sound. Yep. So like it was like it started popping off, like real talk.
How was the crowd?
When it first started happening, people were like, man, this sounds cool. Yeah. And like people didn't know what to do. Cause like at the time they didn't really know how to respond, but they just thought it was like cool and like it was just off the hook. Yeah. But like these 7th and 8th graders playing these songs. Yes. So God had me to change it to where we're playing Made to Love by was it Brandon Heath or Toby Mac? I was made to love you. Da, 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 da. Yep, we did that with the band. Oh my God,
Great one for a band.
it was so. We had a number of Christian songs that I added that and like TV and movie themes. So that was the direction that God had me to change and move things. So now we're at these district and state playoffs. First thing was hilarious. People asked how old the kids were. 13? No, you're not. Yeah, we are. Like, because they were playing so good that people didn't want to believe that they were so young. Yeah. And so like we get to the state tournament, Spokane Arena, and like everybody's just shook because like nobody's heard a band play these kinds of songs or bring this kind of energy or vibe. And so like as they started to get older, like I started rebuilding with those little kids. And as they got older, the band started getting bigger because I started bringing other younger kids in to the point that I ended up adding in one of the biggest hits now is Ghostbusters. My buddy Danye Goodman, he wrote like a funk arrangement. Him and his godbrother Q Davis wrote a funk arrangement of Ghostbusters. I transcribed it and I transcribed that song out and we were playing that. So like when we're playing Ghostbusters, like it's like this big roll call coming from the band and everybody stops what they're doing in the arena and starts looking over and like, oh, that's cool, you know. So like, and what it did was it drew more attention to our school in a positive light to where they're looking at how my band kids are conducting themselves. And I had a number of people come up to me and like, man, like your kids behave so well, or we appreciate this, we appreciate that. And like, the overall goal is not for me to be all big and bad and high and mighty or anything like that, but it's to teach these students how to conduct ourselves as followers of Christ, but then also to bring the light of Christ onto the school that I was working and serving under, you know. So it really got to the point to where our basketball games specifically, they were concerts for the band. They were concerts. Like there was one game back in 2020. We were going back and forth with another team pregame, and it got to the point that the other band, they stopped playing. They stopped playing. Yeah. Like and those kids were, man, they were so driven. And like at this point, like those kids, like the cool thing about the arena, like the state tournament, you're going like underground in the tunnels and all that. So you feel like a rock star, you know, but like these kids, they came out like at this point, I graduated some of those kids out. The last of those kids were seniors, and like their attitude was, we don't just go just to make noise. Like we carry ourselves with the spirit of excellence, and like we're gonna be a positive light in the process of this. So like our biggest song, like our biggest song to start off games was "Give Me Your Eyes," and it would start off with the trumpets. And like you got people all around the stadium jamming out. Yeah, and they're jamming out, and like you have a whole bunch of other people, they don't know the song, but they think it sounds cool. Little do they know Jesus is being dropped into their hearts. You know, so like my thing was like, why not put Jesus in it? We're a Christian school, you know, why not put Jesus in it? Find an excuse for him. When I took on the choir program, my head boss, he shared with me, he said, Joseph, he said, our concerts don't have to look the same way they've always looked. And like one of the things I want to take a moment to acknowledge my mentor, one of my heroes, my band teacher, Bob Gorham, because fun fact, I didn't know what I was going to study my senior year of high school. I was doing a research paper for the Access Scholarship. It was one of our homework assignments, and I had to research majors at Whitworth. And so one of the majors I researched was music education. And while I started picking my band teacher's brain, I was a TA for him. I was like, hey, Mr. Gorham, what about this? What about that? He was like, oh, yeah, I studied this. That's my degree. It's like, oh, yeah, this? Yeah, you do that with the drumline. Oh, yeah, you do that with the band. Oh, you do that. And like in the process of this research paper, he showed me that God had given me a gift for teaching. And I never knew that. So like I initially went to Whitworth to study music education. Halfway through, God had me to change my path, and I finished in business management. But Mr. Gorham, in that conversation of what should I do, my dad told me, call him. He trusts him. Mr. Gorham said, Joseph, it sounds like you need to get your degree in business management, but both you and I know that God's going to call you back to Life Christian to teach. Here's the thing. I never told Mr. Gorham that when I was in high school, God told me I would come back to Life Christian to teach. So by him saying that like sealed it even more that this is a God thing. So like we didn't do a ton of Christian music like this when I was a student. We did some spirituals and whatnot, but my teacher, he was a very big discipler and whatnot. So like when I stepped into my teaching role, he would come in once to twice a week to help me get it organized and set up plans and all of that stuff. So like he was a huge part in my learning as a student, but even at starting as a teacher. So now when I move on to take on the band and the choir, Mr. Gorham, he's in full support of it. And my head boss, he says, Joseph, our concerts don't have to look the same way they've been looking. He said, follow how God leads you. He said, if you want to do a smaller ensemble piece here, if you want to spotlight this student, if you want to find a way of showcasing students by bringing guests to support them and all that, he said, I trust how God leads you. Mm-hmm. And when he said that was it. Like, I was like, whoa. Like, first off, it's a big deal that I'm taking on the choir program now, but the fact that he trusts the Jesus in me to lead the program in a way that would honor Christ and just take us up a level. So that summer I got to praying, and God, the only thing that I heard from God was be different, be different, be different. And so that next year I started something new. I started having numbers where the band and the choir would perform alongside each other, and I'm directing both the band and the choir, and the choir singing and the band is supporting them. Mm-hmm. And we would do small ensemble pieces and whatnot. But what ended up happening was our concerts changed from just being a normal basic school concert to being a worship experience. Yeah. Like after our first Christmas concert, I had a dad come to me and he said, Mr. Lawyer, he said, I want to let you know that concert blessed me. He said, Christmas has always been a hard time for me because I've lost so many loved ones. But he said, when I was sitting in the Christmas concert, I felt all of that be lifted off of me. Mm. Yeah. So it's humbling to be able to be in that place of just being used by God just to introduce families and people to Jesus like that.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. That seriously is awesome. Sorry. So 2016 or 15 or 17, somewhere around there, the founder and CEO of Band Geek. Right. And like, you're repping Band Geek, right?
Yes.
So I'm trying to, can we get a little bit of understanding? Yes. What is Band Geek? Why did you create it?
Yes.
And then we need to know where we can find information about Band Geek too.
So Band Geek came as a result of the work that I was doing with my students. So like I said, there was no high schoolers in the band when I started at Life Christian as a teacher. It got to a point to where like students were more so ashamed of being associated with the band program. Mm. They were ashamed of being associated as a band kid or a band nerd, band geek, and all of that. And so like the very first thing that I did when I was coming there, I was building relationships with students and I was helping them to understand like, hey, it's okay to be goofy. It's okay to be clumsy and spunky and all that. Like, look, I'm one of the goofiest people. I was never the cool kid. Like you ask my god brothers, my cousins, my family, I was always the youngest of everybody, and I was always the most clumsy. I had big hands and big feet, and I had a funny voice to them, so like it's fine. Like the moment you accept the fact that you're goofy, you're smart, you're intelligent and all that, that's when other people will gain a greater respect for you. So like in the process of that, God dropped on my heart Band Geek. And so one of my childhood best friends growing up, she always called me a geek. And so she was the only person I ever let call me a geek. I was okay with her. Anybody else, I would be mad. But like in all honesty, when I was growing up, I was kind of like a Steve Urkel. Yeah. But so like that's where the name and the idea of Band Geek came from. So like in the process, I was thinking like, as a musician, a lot of times musicians we're overlooked. Yeah. We're overlooked and we're underappreciated. And so like I wanted to be able to bring something to my students, to youth, as well as just to the musician world, to where we have something that we can wear proudly across our chest that represents us. Excuse me. I'm a band geek, born and raised band geek. It's the coolest thing on the planet. Your world would be miserable without me.
Dude, you just dropped. All right. So wait, where do you still have Band Geek merch out there?
Yes. So the bandgeekstore.com.
Recently, CEO and founder, I'm gonna say that again, of the the Vision Academy, Vision Youth Academy, right? Talk to us about what the Vision Youth Academy is. How did you get here? What is it? You know, kind of run that down.
Yes. So sorry, dating back to high school, senior year of high school. Yes.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I'm applying for the Act 6 scholarship, and the last final essay that we have to write for the application process is we have to tell about ourselves without words. And I struggle with it. And I had a friend who had this super cool picture that he was making. I'm like, dude, I don't know how to do that. And so I just sat, and then I took a picture, like a portrait of myself. And then I started finding other pictures of myself. So there was a picture at this point, I taught the band program. I taught the high school and 5th grade band classes for a full week because my teacher, he was out of town for the week with his wife, and he had me run the band. So I have pictures of me teaching the band. I have pictures of me leading the drum line, pictures of me writing, leading worship, basketball. And I have all these pictures going around, like I'm creating a collage around this portrait. But in the process, I just start sketching, and I don't know why. And by the time I'm done, I realized that I sketched a building, and over the time of sketching it, God started to open up my mind, and it was a youth center. And this youth center, the emphasis was the arts. It was music and media arts. And there's a gym in there, of course, because basketball guy. But like in the process of this, God gave me a vision of a youth center that I would be starting, where I would essentially run a music program and train students in music and all of that. And so this happened before I even knew that I had a gift for teaching. God just gave me this vision. And so this is on my essay. And so when I was in college, Vision Youth Academy was one of the things on my mind. And like initially it was called Vision Youth Center. And that was always on my mind, as with all my business projects and whatnot. Vision Youth Center was typically built around it. I was trying to figure out and navigate how could I do this or do that? How does this information apply to this? And so when I got the phone call, I didn't know what I was doing when I graduated college. I didn't know where I was going. I had no idea. So that's why I shared the story about Chelsea and my family. Like Chelsea made sure that I didn't go away from what God was calling me to do. And she believed in the vision that God gave me, to the point that she was willing to work if she had to. And so when I signed on at Life Christian, my prayer was, God, what about Vision Youth Center? Like, what am I supposed to do? Do I start this while I'm at Life Christian, or do I have to leave? Like, how does this work? I don't know. And like, he didn't really answer yet. He just had me to trust him. But like, one of the things that I understood was that I knew that LCA was the starting point. When God told me I was going to come to LCA, I knew that I was going to come there. I knew that I wasn't going to be there for 20 plus years and all that. I knew that. So everything that I did was strategically preparing me for where I was going. And so I fell in love with the ministry of LCA. I fell in love with everything that I was doing and all of that, to the point that this assignment left my mind for a while. And it was New Year's of 2020. We're having dinner at a friend's house, and this friend says, Joe, when are you going to leave LCA and start your music school? And I flinched. Me and Chelsea, we both flinched, and we looked at each other. He was like, did I say something wrong? And I looked at him and was like, nah, you didn't say anything wrong. Actually, God put this on my heart. And it was from that moment there, God started to remind me of what the greater purpose was, and remind me why I came to LCA and why he had me doing the things he had me doing with the music program and all that, because it was strategically setting me up and preparing me. So I knew that it was coming, but I fell in love with the ministry of LCA. I love my students, and to this day I miss them so much. But like, I want to say it was winter of 2021. I was driving to work one morning, and God said, leave LCA. And I flipped out. Like, he said it very loud and clear, leave LCA. And I started panicking. That the rest of that school year, I was having panic attacks, because like, I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to leave, but I also didn't want to be disobedient. So I started seeking God, like, what am I supposed to do and all of that. And he, at the end of the 2022 school year, he told me, one more year, this is your last year. And he was gracing me another year, so I could at least, settle things a little bit. and graduate certain kids. I can't graduate everybody, but he at least let me graduate certain kids and whatnot. So like throughout all of this, like I was praying, like, what does this look like? How am I supposed to do this? And like, God didn't really give me any information until I had a friend. He worked at the chamber, and he told me about a business accelerator program that they were doing at the chamber. And so he encouraged my wife to get into it at first, because she was the business owner. She had a business that she was running. And my wife told me, she was like, you know what? It's better if you do it right now, because you're about to go on, and I've already been doing this a little bit. So like, yeah, you should just go ahead and do it. So like I didn't really know when that was going to happen or when it was going to start. The moment, God didn't give me any more clarity until I announced to the school that it was my last year. And like, it was like, he didn't give me additional information until I took one more step of obedience or faith. Like, fast forward, here I am now. We're operating now in our first year. Essentially what Vision Youth Academy is, our mission is to bridge the gap for young people who desire to pursue careers in music and media. In my time teaching in the traditional school world, I had a lot of students who were interested and passionate about pursuing music, but like we'd have a conversation one day, then the next day they would be saying, oh yeah, I'm going to go and do this. I'm going to go do nursing. I'm going to be a doctor or something like that. All of those fields are great, but I'm like, what happened? You know? And I came to find out that somebody, whether it was a relative or a friend, told them they need to find a real job, or it's too hard to do this. You have to make it this way. And and like, what I came to understand is that there's a lack of resources and information and guidance on how to actually make it. Because nowadays there's more than one path to having a career in music. Yeah. Hi, I'm a music teacher. Technically it's a career in music. I write music. You have worship pastors, and it's just so much more to it, and the independent artist world is starting to really come up. You have a number of independent artists who are making a living off of what they do. And it's not the traditional way that everybody is thinking. Right. So our goal and our heart is to provide resources and information for students so that they can continue to dream those dreams. And like, so we're a performance-based group. So similar to the Tacoma Youth Symphony or Puget Sound Youth Wind Ensemble. So we meet on the weekends, and but we have a career-based educational element attached to it as well. So we recently started bringing in different professionals in the field who operate in music. And so we had a worship director who's, by day he's a firefighter. He's my worship director, Javon Harrison. By day he's a firefighter, but he's also a songwriter. He's a producer. He's a worship director at our church, among many other things. We had one of my former students, his dad is a very accomplished songwriter in the Christian world as well as the TV world as well. He wrote the theme song for Paw Patrol.
Are you serious?
Among a number of other things.
My kids would just
I say Paw Patrol because that's the only thing I know that will catch people's attention, but like, yeah, like exactly. So like I had his son was one of my first students at LCA. His son was one of those 7th grade kids that I had. Cool. Yeah. So like, he came in and he shared with our students on his journey and how he's doing life and whatnot. We have other people coming in. So like I'm hitting people from different areas, like people who are he's in the industry. My worship director, he's not in the industry. I have a cousin of mine who's big in the industry who's coming to share with the kids. I have a former student who's more like a niece to me. She's coming to share on worship leading and mental health because she's studying mental health. So like just helping these kids understand that there's more than one way in. Your path doesn't have to look exactly the same, or it doesn't have to look a specific way. It's based on how God leads you. If God has placed this gift in you, then he'll bring it to fruition. But my job is to encourage you to dream and give you as much information as possible during the process. One of the things that also sets us apart is that like our mission, our performance style and mission base is Christ-centered. So like they're learning music theory, they're learning ear training, they're learning career base and all of that stuff. But then also we're putting Jesus in there too. So like our performances, songs are Christ-centered. And I'm realizing nowadays a lot of kids, they don't have a lot of opportunity to really learn to dive into Jesus outside of their church youth group. You know, so like it's giving them an outlet, you know, to be able to do that, to learn and grow as a worship leader, grow as a musician, learn to grow and understand how to be sensitive to the Spirit of God, and learn how to be adaptable and all that fun stuff. You know, they're learning to read, but then they're also learning to be adaptable and understand the theory behind music. So the national number system, understanding their scale degrees to where on the drop of the hat they can go another direction if they're instructed otherwise. So really just equipping them to be flexible musicians. You know, and my prayer is that in this, God will open up doors for these kids. You know, in the next year, our goal is to start taking our students on college tours. You know, taking them visit some schools. You know, some kids will go to college, some kids won't. Some kids will pursue their career directly out of high school. Some kids will want to go the traditional college route. But just at least exposing them to some of the programs that are out there, so that they know what's available to them. You know, but yeah, really just getting these kids to dream courageously and follow the voice of Lord, and not succumb to fear. We're going to open up our media sector within the next couple of years. Right now, we're just trying to set a solid foundation with the music side, and then eventually we'll open up our media, which will be so much more. Another fun thing about our concerts is that it's all original music. They're professionally filmed and recorded. So we had our first concert for Christmas, all original music. We released that as an album, so that's on streaming platforms and all that. It's called Here Is Holy by Vision Youth. And so like what it's doing is it's exposing these kids to what it's like to in the production world, why their performance and why their approach is so much important. So why is it so important? And then also it's helping them to build a portfolio. You know, if they want to get an internship somewhere, if they're trying to get into a certain program in college and somebody wants to hear them, they can be like, oh yeah, I was a part of this program called Vision Youth Academy, and you can find our concert on YouTube, or listen to this on Spotify. You know, I played the bass on this song, or I sang solo on this song, or I played the drums, you know, or I'm singing background vocals, you know, because that's very important. Background vocals is an art, which a lot of people don't understand. So like I'm teaching my students the art of singing background vocals or supporting someone or leading and all that. So yes, that's who we are. And it all started with a small vision as a high schooler. And then in my time at LCA, God just kept stretching me. And in his stretching me, he was saying like, remember, this is only the starting point. This is a starting point. You know, so like the blessing of Vision Youth is now that my wife, she's like a silent partner in everything that I do. She doesn't like to be seen. But she's been a huge encouragement and a huge part of it. But now I'm able to have my kids with me more, you know, because working at LCA as a traditional school teacher, my daughter was with me a lot in her younger years. But as COVID happened and as my kids got older, they were in the house. I'm gone at games either with the band or coaching or both. So I'm away from them a lot. And then we move a little further away. So now it's a longer trip home. So I'm gone for the entire day. So like my kids are growing and I'm looking at them like, God, like these are my boys need me. So the blessing is that in the work that I'm doing with Vision Youth Academy, I'm able to have my family be a part of it. Currently, we're accepting teens ages 13 through 18. If you're motivated about learning music, if you want an outlet that's a little different from the classical world, our performance style is more urban style. So like a lot of gospel, soul, funk, contemporary Christian. There's some classical dabbled in there too, because that's foundational and whatnot. But just a little more rounded. Yeah, we love to have you. This is our first year. We have about 10 students. I want to more than double this next school year. Yeah. So excuse me. If you're interested in just wanting to sow a seed, sowing a seed into our program, we do have a partnering foundation, Vision Youth Foundation, where you could contribute a tax-deductible gift or a donation to our program to help us continue to do this work that we're building. Yeah. You kind of reminded me of it. So I have a group called Joe Lawyer and New Sound.
What?
Joe Lawyer the Third and New Sound. So,
yes.
Yes.
You did a recording.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we did a recording 2 years ago and finally released this past fall. It's called The Resurrection Project. You can find it on all streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, whatever streaming platforms that you listen to. But that was like a key process into me getting to where I went, because God, he told me that I need to go and start a worship team. And I was like, no, I don't want to. Mind you, I'm in the aisle. At the altar to say yes to Jesus. And I'm saying, God, I don't want to do it. He said, if you should be ashamed of me before men, then I'll be ashamed of you before my Father. And that was like what really steamrolled me saying yes to God in everything, with starting that worship team, which then became JL3 and New Sound and all of that. And and because that's a foundational piece to everything that I'm doing now. I don't know how Fred Hammond reminded me of that, but Fred Hammond reminded me of that.
Well, I'm glad you brought it up, because so Joseph Lawyer,
Yes.
the third, musician, minister of the gospel, bass player, keyboard player, organ player, drummer, worship leader, coach, academy director, a band geek.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Most importantly, a father, a husband, and a man of God.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.